Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go. I don't know why he does that all the time. If you're watching this, not listening to it, about 60% of the time my intro works. It has nothing to do with my social media team. It has to do with the streaming service that I pay too much money for, and quite honestly, won't be paying for it much longer. Thank God Dean Gerhardt, Eric Cox, and the gang are working on some special stuff for me, because I've got top of the line. I've invested in this show. I've got top of the line, the best high-speed internet you can get. I'm spending a lot of money per month for this service, and it's not working out. So on to the next thing. But you'll still get this show 3 times a week. We got a great show in store here, Ballsy Uncut, brought to you by Ward Tire Craft, 101 Dudney Avenue in Regina and in Saskatoon. Go see Michael Barth. Tell him Ballsy sent you here in Regina. 10% off, just like that, from Ballsy Uncut, Ward Tire Craft, and you. Also, I'll give me 1 second. I like to do the visual here. Shucks, it's not here. It's in the other fridge. So I want to give a shout out to District Brewing and their Super Squeeze Seltzers, Mango Lime, Passion Fruit Lime. They've got the IPA. Englishish is a good one. They've got light beer. They got Pilsner. Go check out their stuff on 8th Avenue at their store. Nice little place to sit in there and watch a little TV and have your favorite beverage. Great place in the summer to sit out in the patio. Also, all their stuff's in Saskatchewan liquor stores. It's District Brewing. And AGT Foods Canada, thanks to them for getting on board. Murad El Khatib and the gang. Want to thank District Brewing and Stats Cocktails and Dreams, Mr. D, Stats Cocktails and Dreams and Cravings, for sponsoring the Grey Cup party. We're going to be having some social media posts and take you down memory lane from that Winnipeg-Toronto Grey Cup 111, which was won by the Argonauts, their 19th championship. And today it was revealed that Buck Pierce is leaving the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to become the head coach of the BC Lions. He was in the running along with Jordan Maksimic, who is the current or was the current offensive coordinator. Not sure how it's going to shake down, if he's going to stay around there. And Mike Benavides, who used to be a head coach of the BC Lions and last 2 years their special teams coordinator. It was nice to see 2 of the top 3 candidates for the Lions have a Canadian background, a Canadian birth certificate, and Buck Pierce, the American, who comes here and obviously has a affection for our league. And with that in mind, coming up before the end of the show, we're going to talk to the guy he's going to be working closely with. Yes, Nathan Rourke will join us right here on Ballsy Uncut. We're also going to talk about the goings on in Edmonton with the Eskimos. Will they change their name back to the Eskimos? Mark Killam's the new head coach. I thought it was going to be Rick Campbell, but Mark's a great hire. 3-time provincial championship coach with Cochrane. In Cochrane. He was a player at the U of A, almost became their head coach, special teams coordinator, assistant head coach with the Stampeders, now the head coach of the Eskimos. He will join us next Tuesday. But to talk all things Edmonton sports scene, this guy's covered the Edmonton sports scene for a long time. It's Bob Stauffer, who's in Vegas tonight for the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. So we'll talk to Bob Stauffer, and we're also going to hear from James Gallo, voice of the Moose Jaw Warriors. As we talk now, he's about 35 minutes away from calling the game in Lethbridge between the Hurricanes and Warriors, and you very well could call them the Moose Jaw Hurricanes or the Lethbridge Warriors. Second time this year they've made a trade, and they made a big trade this last one here on Monday, yesterday. Yeager, their captain, and Unger, their goalie, 2 19-year-olds, go to Lethbridge for some players and a bunch of draft picks. We'll get James Gallo to break down the trade for us. So away we go. It's Ballsy Uncut. By the way, our first sponsor break brought to you by Paul Waldo at Royal LePage. Get in the real estate game with the 3-time Grey Cup champ, 306-502-5355. Hot Stove with Bob Stauffer. Haven't had a chance to have you on in a while. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, bud.
Reach out anytime, Michael.
Okay. I like having you on because you can talk about a bunch of different sports, not just hockey. Listen, he didn't have the greatest game yesterday on Monday Night Football, but I watched Bo Nix play, and I'm like, how was he the 6th quarterback taken in the draft?
I understand how he was the 6th quarterback taken because I saw him play at Auburn, and I didn't think he was that good. And now he did make some incredibly athletic plays. Then he goes to Oregon and puts up ridiculous numbers, but doesn't seem like Oregon always has, quarterbacks that put up numbers. I mean, I can remember what Kelly Smith not at Oregon, with that rocket-like arm. We were just in Denver. In fact, several people that were on my Oilers now road trip stayed for that game, and it was interesting because Jameis Winston, when he was with Florida State, were at the same hotel as us the year they went and played that national championship game. So there's your 6 degrees of separation there, and staying in Anaheim when we were there. Highly entertaining football game. Bo Nix gets wins. Denver, you don't have to love the coach. I personally think the coach is pretty good. But I'll be honest with you, frankly, for me, Bo Nix has surprised me. He's been better than I thought he was going to be.
And Jameis Winston, what a game. 4 touchdowns, 497 yards passing, 3 interceptions, 2 went for pick sixes. Talk about a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. I think I mentioned this to you before. I have in my fantasy football pool, I've been in the same pool since 1995. That's 29 years. Now I don't pay to be in the pool. It's just a fun pool. All of my starters in skill positions, so the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, they're all Alabama guys. And so I had a dilemma this week because I do have Jerry Jeudy, but I started him last week and he didn't do a damn thing. So I didn't start Jerry Jeudy this week. So I started Jalen Waddle was one of my starters, and I started Armani Cooper over Jerry Jeudy. And suffice to say, that combined with the fact that Tua ended up out producing Jalen Hurts has resulted in I'm having a tough season. I'm picking the problem is there's too many good Alabama starts. Now I will tell you, I have Derrick Henry and I have Jacobs.
Think about these 3 teams. Last NFL point. Think about these 3 teams that got rid of Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry, where they are now. The Giants, Titans, Raiders, and now Jacobs, Packers, Ravens, and of course, you got Saquon with the Eagles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like you look at the Eagles, they got a great defense and they can run the football. And their quarterback, I don't think Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback, but he is a leader. You look at the Ravens, I do think Lamar's special. I love watching I just can't figure why they don't have a better record. Like, to me, now their defense has been porous, and it's traditionally been a strength of the team. Maybe it was inevitable that they were going to come to a point. And then in terms of Green Bay, up and down injury issues at quarterback during the course of the season. But Josh Jacobs looks like a pretty good fit there. You're 100% right. The 3 organizations that lost those running backs, they're not looking too good. And the end result is, 2 of those 3 guys are from Alabama. And obviously Barkley was at Penn State. Jack Michaels is a Penn State guy. His daughter attends Penn State right now. And he used to be, I think he's really more of a Pitt guy, but they were so bad for so long, he became more of a Penn State guy. And, Penn State's, there is an outside chance Penn State, if Alabama, and I don't know if Alabama gets in the playoff, but if they get in the playoff, best guess scenario would be they'd end up playing either Penn State or Notre Dame. That'd be something.
So we'll get to the Oilers in a second. Let's get to football because the guy I'm talking to used to be in the athletic department at the University of Alberta. He was the play-by-play voice. And Mark Killam is the new head coach of the Edmonton Elks. Listen, I have no problem with Mark Killam. I think he's a great coach. I was a little shocked. I thought they'd go for Rick Campbell because they need to win. Campbell, Hugh Campbell, Rick Campbell. Your thoughts on Mark Killam getting the job as the head coach?
Did you hear his address? I mean, that sounds like a guy you want to play for. It's really interesting because here's your 6 degrees of separation for you. In 2012, Chris Knobloch was basically beat out for the Golden Bears coaching job. Chris was coaching Kootenay.
Yeah.
In the spring and summer of 2000, he was the coach at Kootenay at that time. And he applied for the U of A job, and the university elected with Ian Herbert. So nobody knew that Ian was going to leave an American Hockey League head coaching post in Milwaukee to come back to U Sports. But Chris Knobloch, was and his name was out there. Probably shouldn't have got out there, but it got out there. And ultimately, that played a factor in Jeff Chenoth making a decision to relieve him of his duties in Kootenay. And that's how Chris ended up in Erie, because he didn't get the U of A job. And then you had Mark Killam, and the Golden Bears had a dreadful run under Jeff Stead, who probably is a really good high school coach, but was not a great university. And Alberta had not had good recruiting classes for years. And so they made a coaching change, and Mark Killam he was going to be Alberta's coach. And then John Huffnagel down in Calgary didn't want to lose his special teams coach. And so he bumped up the salary on Mark Killam. So think about that. Today, Chris Knobloch is the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, and Mark Killam is the head coach of the Edmonton Elks. I did broadcast some of Mark's games right around the very early 2000s. I think he was the longest serving. You correct me if I'm wrong here, Michael, but I think he was the longest serving coach with one team in the league. Had to have been at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And so high energy guy. I got to tell you, I like what the Elks have done here. Chris Morris, did he kill it as a coach at the U of A? No, U of A is a tough place to coach. You don't have a lot of support. The university's really focused on their court sports. That's who's got the power. Okay. And so it's, you're not Laval with 5 full-time coaches, right, at the U of A. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's no, Regina ended up winning the Canada West, and Alberta spanked them in Edmonton earlier this year. And they're up 22-4 in Regina last game of the year. And if they win that game, Regina doesn't make the playoffs. So I think Chris didn't have the greatest year at the U of A, but I'm pleased that he's getting this opportunity, because for the purposes of the president, I think Chris Morris will do a great job. Mm-hmm. Ed Hervey is a known commodity. And the last time the Eskimos, now named the Elks, went to the Grey Cup and won it back in 2015, Hervey was the GM. And now you bring in Killam, who's younger. Am I a little surprised? No, Rick Campbell? Yeah, I'm a little surprised. But I also think it's time, just simply time for Mark Killam. So I like that the one thing that they've done is they've re-enthused and re-engaged their fan base with local football. And I got frustrated a couple times with the board, because they made hires that at the president's level that were completely zero ties to Edmonton and zero ties to the football community. And I really like what they've done here with the combination of 3 people. Those guys know Edmonton. They know what Edmonton's about. And I do think they have a chance to sort of reestablish the Elks / Eskimo brand, which has been failing for a number of years.
You bring up a good point. Lastly, as it relates to football, there's some talk that they could bring the Redskins name back in the NFL. Yeah. Okay, I think that's a little more dicey than the Eskimos name, and I say that as a 52-year-old white man, so take it for what it's worth. Yeah. But do you think there could there be an appetite to bring that name back?
I would suggest to you that there's some former players that didn't like how things went there.
Oh, I know that. I talked to them. Yeah.
Yes. So I would suggest that there would be an appetite with some. Let's just leave it at that. You're right. I mean, two white guys in their 50s commenting on it. But I am with you. I don't believe. I know that they did independent studies, and the name Eskimos in some of the independent studies they did was not seen as being super offensive to those groups. So now whether that's changed since then, I don't know. But I wonder whether or not there's a possibility that it is. I know this. They're sitting on Commonwealth Stadium. I think we're going to see a change in city government in Edmonton. Okay. And, I wonder whether or not there will be a little less emphasis. I think let's just say that the city needs to run more efficiently and have a greater understand the importance of business and what it brings to the community and respect it instead of thumbing your nose at it and doing whatever you want. I'm thinking we're going to see. I think it's clear, man. Just look at the States. I mean, I'm down in the States right now. People do the Trump dance. I don't care who you vote for. Go vote for who you want. Be left wing, be right wing. Try to be educated on it. But I am seeing a little bit of a change from some of the narrative that's been really pushed forward.
Yeah,
the last 2 to 3 years. So I guess anything's possible.
The worm is turning, I think, a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about some positives with the Edmonton Oilers. Podkolzin playing well, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is starting to find a little offense, which is key for the Oilers. You're closer to it than me, but Skinner and Arvidsson haven't exactly worked out there yet.
Yeah, well, Arvidsson's been hurt, and the naysayers will say, well, Bob, he was hurt the last couple of years in LA too, and he's not even on the trip. So they must have found something else, because it initially sounded short term, and it's not short term. I'm going to assume it's a core issue. Jeff Skinner is going to have to alter his game. He's on a good team now, okay, and a good team led by Connor and Leon that are drivers, that are committed, that are all in. That don't cheat the game. But the good thing is they're not jerks. They're good teammates. They try to help other guys on the ice. But I think Jeff Skinner is going to have to evolve a bit as a player here. Mm-hmm. There was a play the other night against Colorado. He had the puck, a chance to make a play just outside the Colorado blue line. Got stripped. They turned it up, and McKinnon was gone on a breakaway. Like, that play can't happen if you want to win come playoff time. And to be honest with you, McKinnon went in, and Kulak got the stick across the hands, and he's moving so fast. This is what happens to McDavid all the time. They don't call it. Mm-hmm. So I think Jeff Skinner is going to have to amend his game to become a more effective player. Okay, I also think he's going to have to give the puck up quicker and read and react quicker with his teammates, and because he's if he's ever going to get back in the top six, he's playing with McDavid or Draisaitl. Those guys get the puck. And the guy that has figured that out is Vasily Podkolzin. You know exactly what he is going to do in every situation. He's going to work his tail off on puck retrievals. He's going to go in the corner. And if he's not the first one in the corner, he's going to try to dislodge the guy that's got the puck by hitting him. Okay? He's going to go to the front of the net. He's going to try to get deflections, because he works on deflections in practice every day. Okay? He's a very good forechecker. He's great on creating second chance opportunities when they think they've survived the initial wave. He can still work. So he's a guy that, and I'll be honest with you, Jeff Skinner's a 6-time 30-goal scorer. When the Oilers signed him, I thought he'll score 30 here, and he won't even have to be on the first unit power play to do it. And when Stan Bowman made the decision on about the 19th or 20th of August, on the Sunday, 2 days before he had to make the final decision on Broberg and Holloway. And in the morning, he traded for Podkolzin, and then later in that afternoon, he traded for Emerson. And that was a pretty clear message. That's who's replacing, in Podkolzin's case, Holloway, in Emerson's case, Broberg. I did not think that this was the player the Oilers were going to get on Podkolzin. Podkolzin has been a huge and pleasant surprise for me. And I know he's only got 3 goals. He's scored in 3 straight games. But he's become a wonderful story for Edmonton. And I think back to, I talked to Chris McFarland, the GM in Colorado, on Saturday. They have Nichushkin. The guy went an entire season without scoring, right? And, he's a very well-compensated player now in the league, and has had some really big offensive years. So, Podkolzin's still a young guy, but Michael, you should see how hard he works in practice.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that this is a player that didn't work with Rick Tocchet.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
But it's working for Edmonton.
And lastly, I made a comment. I threw a bunch of names there. What about Nugent? What are you seeing from his game here?
Well, I mean, he's an important guy. I think you know that. And I often say, as Nugent Hopkins is the barometer of the Oilers. So when he's contributing, they're usually winning. Okay. And he had a great final 60 games a couple of years ago en route to I think he had like 36, 37 points, and 100, or 36 or 37 goals, 103 points. He's playing with McDavid, 5-on-5, and he's on a power play. That power play has got to get better. Their penalty killing's starting to get better. No, it's now Nugent's part of the penalty kill. He's on the first penalty killing unit as well. He's done a much better job in faceoffs this year. But if he can at least be 20 goals and 60 points, right? That's a pretty good third highest scoring forward for you.
Yeah.
You know, now last year Hyman had 54 goals. They need to get him back. I'm going to walk over to the rink here in about half an hour. I think there's a possibility, maybe one more game before we see Zach in the lineup. Maybe he plays against Columbus. So, but there's no question Skinner, Arvidsson, everybody was super jacked about what they might be able to do. Ballsy is, top 6 guys. We haven't seen it yet. In Arvidsson's case, it's because of injury. And in Skinner's case, I think it's because he's going to have to alter his game.
So who's going to join McDavid in the Four Nations face-off there?
I don't know. Who do you think?
Well, I mean, has Nurse played his way on? Skinner with that performance against the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah.
Like Bouchard?
For me, I have Bouchard on the team. I think Hyman, just the 3 goals and the injury, I think it's going to be hard for him to make it. Skinner, it's crazy. So let's say we go back to the morning of June the 24th and I think we did one on June the 23rd, you and me. We did.
We did. Yeah.
And if I told you before game 7, Michael, Skinner's only going to give 2 goals up.
Mm-hmm.
You'd say, okay, we'll take that.
Yeah.
You'll think they can score more. So here's the question I have for you. If he wins, if the Oilers win the cup and they win 3-2, or 4-2, and he wins the cup as Canada's goalie or as Edmonton's goalie in the Stanley Cup, does that not all but guarantee that he's on Team Canada?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Right. And that's all. And you know what? He'd be the first to tell you he'd wish he would have had a second chance at that second goal against. But he made some saves too. They got the bounces. Like the puck didn't ricochet in off of Kulikov at the side of the goal, and they went back up the ice and scored, and that was the swing in the game. And then McDavid got robbed in tight. Hyman got robbed in tight in the final 8 minutes of that game. I had this conversation with a couple GMs, including, and I'll be honest, one of them was Jim Nill.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was an Eastern Conference GM. And the guy was kind of like, well, what happened in game 7? Because, the Oilers won 8, I think it was 8-1, 5-3, and 5-1. So they outscored them like 18-5 over the 3 games. What happened in game 7? And I kind of looked at Jim Nill and I thought to myself, well, how lucky was Edmonton to beat Dallas? Connor's in the box with a double minor in game 1 of the series. The Oilers survive it. McDavid wins game 1 for them. And then in game 6, the shots were 33-11 for Dallas. And I just looked at Jim Nill. I'm like, it's a 6 or 7 game series, man. And in hockey, that's one bounce here or there. Yeah. And he started like, absolutely. And so I say that because when I look at Skinner and I look at Skinner's age, I'm kind of like, why wouldn't you have him on the team? Like, he's 26. He's on the younger arc of Canada's goalies. He's a guy that, and he's going to be on. I think the Oilers have played the second most amount of playoff games in the league over the last 3 years. So, but I know what happens. Because the team has Connor and Leon, and those guys and Bouchard. Those are the 3 highest scoring players in the league in the playoffs the last 3 years. Everyone's like, wow, he's benefiting from playing on the team. He stole game 4 against LA last year. He stole game 6 against Dallas. But he's had some tough moments too. And for the second consecutive year, Stewart's had a tough start to the year. He's starting to get a little bit better. The game in Vegas is going to be a good, big one because, this is a swing game in terms of the standings. And frankly, Edmonton was unlucky not to have gotten a better result the last time they played the Golden Knights.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, so what do you make? So looking at the game notes tonight and checking out, what do you see in this game? Like, how are you looking at?
Well, Stone's not playing for Vegas, and that's a huge. He played that night against Edmonton. He hasn't played since. Vegas has got. I'll tell you. I always look at. So I've got my little book here. Okay, I don't know if you can see it.
I can see it. Yeah, I got it.
And I'm just looking. There's 3 stats that I always look at that usually tell me a lot. So Vegas is 6th in the league in shot percentage, but they're 26th in the league in expected goals for. Okay, so that means that they've had hots, and that's part of the reason why they're 7th in goals for overall. Is they're 6th in the league in shot percentage. The Oilers are 17th in goals for, despite the fact that they're 27th in the league in shot percentage, but they're 4th in expected goals for. So that to me is a sign that their goal scoring is probably going to raise a bit as the season goes on. And oh, by the way, the Oilers are 26th in save percentage, and they've moved up from 32nd. Vegas is only 18th. So To me, that's a sign that we're probably looking at a 4-3 game, a higher scoring game. Yeah. I think Edmonton has a lot more room to grow as a team as the season goes on. They put together 3 wins here. They are 13-6-2 in their last 21 games after the 0-3 start. They have won they've won 5 overtime games. So they're +3 in the 3-on-3 in overtime, which has given them a few more wins. But they've also played some of the tougher teams. Like, they haven't played Anaheim or San Jose. They don't get those teams till the second half of the year. I know Stan Bowman's going to have a move in him, probably to get a defenseman at some time. They're going to look for at least one internal option, potentially at forward, as long as the guy can progress down in the minors, and then we'll see what else happens. But, this team has a lot more runway, in my opinion, to grow and improve as the season goes on.
So 2 more quick questions. I'll let you go on a busy day. So have people figured out the power play? Like, how does it go from, I didn't expect it to be the greatest power play ever forever. Do you know what I mean? But to go from the penthouse to kind of the outhouse, like, what's like, as far as Oilers expectations?
Yes. Well, they're up to 23rd now.
Yeah.
So I do think they got a little static. And I do think they got a little bit of predictable and forced. And you brought up Nugent Hopkins. He just wasn't shooting those lasers coming off. So what they did is, usually what was happening is, Connor moves around a bit. The net front was Hyman. The point man was Bouchard. And then either Draisaitl or McDavid would end up being the bumper or being the right flank. And then Nuge would be on that left side. So the teams were giving the shot up to Nugent Hopkins, and he wasn't coming downhill off that left flank shooting the puck. And and he can shoot. So one of the things they did against Arizona is they flipped McDavid and Nugent Hopkins, and Connor was the one coming down the left side shooting with speed, and he scored a power play goal that way. And they crossed Arizona up twice. I think the power play percentage will increase. They simply were not. I know that off of face-off wins last season, they had the second most shots per game in the shots per 60 on the power play in the league. Second most shots per 60 off an ozone face-off win. And as of a couple games ago, these are stats that the Oilers get done. As of a couple games ago, they were 24th in the league off of ozone face-off wins. So they were being too deselective. So for me, it's simple. Get more pucks to the net earlier, and I like the switch, and I like having McDavid over on that left flank, Draisaitl on that right flank. Nugent Hopkins can be in the bumper role. And I also think they've missed Hyman a little here in the short term because he's really good on winning puck. I talked about retrievals with Podkolzin, and on retrievals in the power play as well is something that Hyman does a good job of.
Okay, so lastly, I don't like you to you work for the Oilers, you're a broadcaster, so I don't get you to comment too much on other teams' personnel, but I don't want to see Sidney Crosby get traded. There's will he go to the Avs? Will he go here? I just want to listen. The guy, the golden goal, 3 Stanley Cups, all the awards, like, he's done everything. I'd love to see him just stay in Pittsburgh. I know that's selfish. I hope he doesn't get moved.
Well, first of all, he's a class guy. Yeah. And Dubas has got Kyle Dubas has got a long leash there. He signed a long-term deal because he knew there was going to be some pain. I don't know what's going to happen with Sidney Crosby. My guess is you're going to get your wish. Okay, it's just I just sense that's probably that's how he's wired. If he was a basketball player, would he go to where he's got his best chance to win? Would he force that? I mean.
Well, he's won, but where I'm going with this, Bob, is he's won, right? Like, he doesn't, he really doesn't need to go anywhere himself. He just got nothing else to prove. But would he do the team a solid and go so they could get would they get enough back? Like, that's
but if you're Kyle Dubas, do you even make the ask? Sidney Crosby, we're talking.
I know.
Like, he's one of the 10 greatest players that's ever played in the game. So, you know what? I'm with you. We're going to see Kyle in January. But I have a feeling that you'll get your wish. I don't think he's going to end up getting traded.
Bob, have a good walk over to the rink and a good call tonight. Thanks. Always great talking to you, man, about everything. Great talking to Bob Stauffer tonight. He is on the call on Sportsnet. You can watch him there. He's exclusive to this podcast when he's not doing his Oilers Now show and his stuff with Rogers for the Oilers. He's on this podcast on a regular basis we'll get into more now once a week during hockey. Got some football talk for him too. Former voice of the Golden Bears, really tapped into the Edmonton sports scene, knows about the Eskimos, Elks, whatever you want to call them now. As a 52-year-old white guy, I know I can't really talk, but I'm going to say I think I'm kind of in the camp that Rocky sends a message in here saying, Edmonton, I guarantee the crowd is coming right back with these changes, and if they change their name back to Eskimos. I don't know, like they're even talking about bringing the Redskins name back. And as Bob said, there wasn't a lot of resistance or people upset with the Inuit people upset with the Eskimos name when they did the survey. It was kind of more proactive from the leadership at City Hall, and it had to do, from what I can tell, people I've talked to, hey, you're going to have problems with your lease if you don't change your name. So we'll see what happens with the new owner, Larry Thompson, new president, Chris Morris, who was an Eskimo, new head coach, Mark Killam. But the Elkimos seem to be going in the right direction. We were also talking about to Bob about the Four Nations face-off, which I don't know if I'm still like, no Russia, no Czechs. Leon Draisaitl's not going to play, no German team. So there was a reported lineup. The lineups get unveiled tomorrow, but there was a reported lineup that came out, or that's been leaked. First line: McDavid, Konechny from Philadelphia, Reinhart, Crosby, Marchand, and McKinnon. Point, Hagel, Marner, Cirelli, Bennett, and Stone. On defense: Taves, Makar, Petrangelo, Theodore, Morrissey, Parayko. The goaltenders are Hill, Binnington, and Montembeault. No Stu Skinner. 13th forward, Seth Jarvis. 7th defenseman, Travis Sanheim. So wouldn't even be Bouchard there. Although I like Bouchard. I think he's got a huge upside, but I'd be wary about giving him all the money. He's great on the power play. He's got an unbelievable shot. He looks disinterested at times on defense. So I don't know if I'd want him. Darnell Nurse is really, people make fun of Darnell Nurse and he makes all that money. He has lived up to his $9 million a year salary this year. He's been probably the best Oilers defenseman. So thanks to Bob Stauffer for joining us. There was a big trade in the Western Hockey League between Moose Jaw and Lethbridge, and ironically enough, they meet tonight. They're going to be taken to the ice in a few minutes as we talk now. But earlier today, I caught up with James Gallo. This show brought to you by our friends at Gerhardt Studios, Dean and Nicole Gerhardt. They're great staff. I work closely too with Eric Cox. Great job by them for all your social media needs for your business. They help with website design. And maintenance. They also help with still photography. Great group over there in McCarra Street, 1779 McCarra Street, Gerhardt Studios. So this podcast talks about all different sports, but I mean, I'm football heavy. So this podcast talks about all different sports, but I mean, I'm football heavy. Last time I had you on, I joked about being a Buffalo Bills fan. Josh Allen caught one. No, he ran for one. He caught one and he threw for two. All of a sudden, this guy's the MVP of the league. Like if Buffalo doesn't do it this year, I don't know when they're going to do it.
You know what? I would agree with you. But I think any year that you have Josh Allen, you have an opportunity to win. I think he's probably among the top 4 quarterbacks, top 4 players in the National Football League. You know what? Watching all the shows and the pregame shows, he doesn't get a lot of chatter for MVP. He's kind of like the side thought a little bit. Yeah. You know, a lot to Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, obviously. Lamar Jackson always kind of pops in there a bit, but and maybe Josh Allen, but he's got my vote if I had a vote. Yeah,
if you had a vote. What do you think of this Four Nations face-off coming up in the NHL? Like it's listen, I'm not going to get into politics. I don't think players should be athletes should be punished for what goes on in the political world. Like it seems like it's kind of just me if it's not Russia. And then you got a guy like Draisaitl. He's not in the four, one of the best players in the NHL. He'd probably be happy to have the day off or the week off or whatever it is. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of, I like it, but it's
Yeah, I like the idea. Well, yes and no, right? I think the idea comes from a generation, our generation, where we grew up with the Canada Cup, which was awesome, right? And previous to that, there was the Summit Series, and I think the new generation, it's the Olympics is kind of the big thing, and I would much rather just see it every 4 years in the Olympics. But however, I do understand why the NHL does this, because it's a way for them to make revenue for themselves. Whereas in the Olympics, I believe they don't make any revenue to have their players there, and it's all risk, right? Because if a guy gets injured, it can really impact an NHL team's path for the rest of that season. So I don't like it, but I do like it, because I think anytime that you can have potential best on best, even though you may not have all the teams there or all the players there, I think it's really exciting to see. To have a guy like Braden Point there, who, I've watched his career right from the start, I think is pretty special for me to watch. But again, you're not going to recapture the magic that you had in the Canada Cup, which that's how we grew up with. They had it with the Olympics, but it just doesn't seem to have that every year. So I think they're just trying to grasp that now every 4 years with this, and then kind of mix in the Olympics every 2 years. I'd be just a little bit concerned if it gets watered down. I don't think it will, but there is a potential.
Boy, interesting. You had a team in their 40th year go to the Memorial Cup, take the city on a great ride, and actually the surrounding area on a great ride. And two big pieces are moved out, Yager and, of course, Unger. And they're moved out to the team you're playing tonight. Wow, that Moose Jaw Lethbridge. Talk about that little irony, and also just the trade in general.
Yeah, it's the second trade between the Warriors and the Hurricanes this season. I was joking with Dustin Forbes, who's the play-by-play voice of the Hurricanes. We said you could almost call it the Lethbridge Warriors versus the Moose Jaw Hurricanes right now.
Yeah,
it was definitely a pretty busy Monday. It's very unique. I been around this team a long time in different roles, but I don't know if I've seen this where on the road the Warriors have traded somebody and then play them the next day. So that's definitely unusual. I think the first couple of shifts are going to be pretty unique for both teams to see friends and teammates on the other side. But it's the era we're in. I think Moose Jaw peaked at their cycle last year, and Jackson Unger and Braden Yager were part of that cycle. They were faces of that generation, that era for the Moose Jaw Warriors, and they were kind of the only guys left that were homegrown from that team last year. And, there was a lot of speculation throughout the course of the year, and credit to those players for handling it like pros. I think that's great on their part. And now they have an opportunity to maybe do back-to-back. And, for the Moose Jaw Warriors, getting Landon Ward and Brady Smith in the lineup right now. Colt Carter is a pretty good defensive prospect for Moose Jaw. And, all those draft assets that Jason Ripplinger has been able to acquire, not just in this trade, but in others this season, has set the organization up for the future, which is what you need to do.
Yeah, for sure. You think the Saskatoon Blades should go this route? They're kind of in that Wenatchee Wild kind of area. Had Les Lazaruk on. Wenatchee was rolling, but they had no picks, and so they decided to say, okay, I know we're looking good now, but we got to dump it and look for the future. You think the Blades are in that kind of category right now?
I'm not too sure, right? Les might have a better view than I would. I'm kind of outside looking in. He might have more of an insider perspective to it. I definitely think it's something that they will probably consider. I think it's a difficult decision to them if they decide to move older players to try and get younger and start a transition phase. Draft wise, I think from what I have written down, Slim in 25. Slim in 26, and then they get better in 27 and 28. But as I joked with Les every time I talk to Les, I say, Les, go for it. Go for it, right? Because the more they trade, the better it looks for the rest of us. So I'm telling Les, go for it. Your opportunity to win is narrow and it's slim. So that's where I think Colin Priestner, the general manager, has a difficult decision because, they are one of the best teams in the conference. They are one of the best teams in the Western Hockey League. It's not an easy decision for him to make. I think in Moose Jaw, people expected the decision to come at some point, and it eventually did yesterday. But for Colin Priestner, I think it's a difficult one. Do you think that you could maybe sell more draft capital this year to try and add some pieces to potentially make another run? I don't know if the conference is right now as strong as it was last year, but trust me, Ballsy, like the Central Division is pretty tough, right? Medicine Hat, Calgary, Lethbridge, Red Deer, Edmonton. From all reports that I've got in Edmonton, a very much improved team, and Grayson Sauchin is probably one of the best players in all the Western Hockey League. So for Saskatoon, it's going to be a difficult decision. They have pretty much a month to do it. The trade deadline's coming up in early January, so we'll see. I'm not too sure. I don't like naming names. I think people can speculate on who would get traded. But it's going to be a difficult decision for the Blades.
So it's easier to sell what you guys did in Moose Jaw because you had the nice run. Al Miller, former Moose Jaw guy, restarting here in Regina. It is kind of tough to sell it to your fan base, though, that you got to have the Pats have been out west here and they've been getting pumped, but you'd expect it because they're just starting over again.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Moose Jaw, from a Warrior perspective, like I said, I mean, you don't lose what Moose Jaw lost in terms of player wise last year and not expect a dip. Atlee Calvert, Lucas Brenton, Martin Rysavy, the graduating 20-year-olds, and then, to lose Jagger Furcus, Denton Bateychuk, and Matthew Savoy to the pro ranks they would be 20-year-olds this year. I mean, if they were back, I mean, there's a chance Moose Jaw could go back to back, right? But that's not the life we live in junior hockey. Those guys, they move on when they're that good. And so I think just the way it worked out at Moose Jaw, I think it's easier for people here to swallow the pill, especially coming off a championship season. And now it's time to try and do it again. In Regina, again, not really. I'm an outsider perspective on that. There's a lot of hard decisions there that they've had to make over the last probably month and a half, trading a guy like Tanner Howe, and there's been lots of reports about the Vaughn situation, trading a guy like Cole Temple, who I've really appreciated watching his development over the years, trading him to the Everett Silvertips. So it's not easy, right? Junior hockey's, it's hard, right? You're dealing with 16 to 20-year-old kids. You never know how they're going to develop. There's a lot of external pressures on these young men that it's hard, right? I mean, the pressure that they have is a lot different than the pressure that you and I had, Ballsy, when we were 16 to 20 years old, because the last thing I was worrying about was winning a Western Hockey League championship. I had more devious thoughts on my mind when I was 16 to 20. It's tough. And I think in Regina, I mean, again, outsider perspective, it's hard to make those decisions. Trade a guy like Tanner Howe, who, is the face of a generation for them. Him and Connor Bedard, they were kind of the dudes for 2.5, 3 years. Obviously, Howe around a lot longer, but it's a hard move to trade a guy like that.
Lastly, from your perspective, are you going to have to do little mental gymnastics in your Lethbridge hotel just to make sure you don't screw up? Like, because you traded two guys that were on your team and now they're on Lethbridge, and you don't get too excited if Jagger scores or whatever.
The guys were joking with me that this morning. They said if Jagger scores, then you just say, and they score. Right. Yeah. Just kind of do the old typical visitor, opposition call. What the key is always talking about our guys, right? I mean, that's what my fan base wants to hear about. They want to hear about the Moose Jaw Warriors, and that's what we're there to talk about. Obviously it's going to be weird. Don't get me wrong. Like I've known Braden Jagger since he was 15 years old. I had the privilege of watching him, grow up. I'm always going to be a Braden Jagger fan. I'm always going to be a Jackson Unger fan. To see those guys do what they did last year and what they've meant to the community, I think is special. I think they both know that, they're always going to be Moose Jaw Warriors, but right now their focal point needs to be on being a Lethbridge Hurricane and helping this community-owned team capture a championship, because I think it would be pretty unique to have back-to-back years of community-owned teams making long runs in the playoffs.
Thanks for your time. Have a good call tonight, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Ballsy. Anytime.
And the Warriors and Hurricanes about to take to the ice in Lethbridge after that trade. So thanks to James Gallo for joining me earlier today. Okay, earlier today it was, I guess the BC Lions have announced that it's Buck Pierce is their new head coach. They'll make the formal press conference tomorrow. But ironically enough, I had asked to talk to Nathan Rourke before I knew this was coming up. So Nathan Rourke's going to join us in a second. I got him earlier today. So Buck Pierce, the head coach, that leaves an open spot on the Bombers coaching staff now for their OC. Could be a lot of moving parts here now. Jordan Maksimic's been with the BC Lions, helping Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams Jr. getting to new heights and success. There's the OC, good Canadian coaching candidate. I was glad to see the Lions have two of their top three candidates as Canadians in Maksimic and Mike Benavides, but they go with Buck Pierce, former quarterback with the BC Lions, won the Grey Cup with them in a support role in 2006, had his career ended, prematurely because of concussions. Quarterback the Blue Bombers as well, has been a part of that great offense for the last number of years that have got the 5 straight Grey Cups. So Pierce is there. Does Maksimic stay? Does he go? If he goes, does he go to Winnipeg? Dave Dickinson needs to take a little bit of stuff off his plate, whether he wants to admit it or not. So maybe Dave turns over play calling duties to a guy like Maksimic or a guy like Rick Campbell, who's been in Calgary before. And Rick's an offensive guy, and he has still a good relationship with Vernon Adams Jr., according to VA, who was on this show, and will become a regular staple of this show coming up here during the year, next year. We're in talks right now to get a good segment going here, me and VA. Anyway, VA's old teammate, Nathan Rourke, will join us here right away. But that goes to who's going to, to finish that thought, who's going to take over in Winnipeg is the OC. Maksimic, does he go there? Does Campbell go there? Does Paul LaPolice leave as a color commentator and a panelist and his YouTube stuff to go back to Winnipeg for another stint? He's got ties to that community. So we'll see what happens, but lots going on. And as far as I could tell from the last I saw, and I better do a check here because this is live, have the Tiger Cats decided on their general manager? So I want to make sure that hasn't been picked up yet. Nope, it hasn't. The Bombers did sign Stanley Bryant to a 1-year deal. He's 38. He'll be 39 in May. Now, it's one thing to talk about Trevor Harris and how great Trevor Harris is, and he is great at 38 to be 39 years old and be an all-star quarterback and overcome 2 major knee injuries in back-to-back years. But it's another thing, and he plays the most important position in pro sports, the quarterback. It's undeniable. But to be an offensive lineman at 38 going on 39 as Stanley Bryant is, signing a 1-year deal, and to have as many awards as this guy has had, and including 4-time offensive lineman of the year, the greatest offensive lineman in CFL history. I think that you can say that. The greatest. And to continue to do it at a very high level, 38 on to 39. He is a defying father time. And, whether you like the Bombers or not, I just like seeing great football. I cheer for football players, not teams necessarily. And that guy you got to tip your Bombers cap to Stanley Bryant. What an absolute stud. Give me a second there. I'm going to put that back there. Winnipeg Blue Bomber hat. I actually went to the Rider store and bought all the helmets, all the mini helmets, except for the Argos one, which isn't in yet. They're all at my desk at Crestview Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 601 Albert Street. Come in and see me. I'm now selling. I was training and still figuring it out. It's not like I'm going to be perfect. I'm a radio guy figuring out the automotive industry, but we got great new and pre-owned vehicles. And I'll tell you this right now. You come in and be my first. Be my first. I got candy canes. I got candies. I got my own cooler full of drinks for you. Come in. Let's talk some turkey. And I'll put you in a draw for the month of December. Something to put under your Christmas tree. I'll put you in a draw for a Joe jersey. The new Rider. I got a Joe Obsidian Green jersey and 2 tickets to the Riders home opener. you'll be in the running if you come in and we can get a deal done at Capital. Crestview Chrysler, Capital owns it. Crestview Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. 601 Albert Street. You'll find me in the back. I'm the guy. You walk in the door, you find me in the back corner. That's where they put the new guys, and I'm there. You'll see my my foot. You can't miss my desk. It's the one with all the CFL helmets. Let's talk. Let's talk sports. Let's talk life. Let me help you get into your next vehicle. All right? After the sponsor break, which is brought to you by District Brewing, their Super Squeeze Seltzer, Mango Lime and Passion Fruit Lime at Saskatchewan liquor stores and at their great building on 8th Avenue. We'll hear from BC Lions starting quarterback, highest paid guy in the CFL, Nathan Rourke. All right, Nathan Rourke joining us here. Thanks for taking time. I always love talking to you, man. Let's start with some fun stuff. Like, do you do podcasts? Like, you listen to podcasts. Hopefully you check out this one from time to time. But other than this one, is there one that you listen to when you're throwing the ball around, walking around the yard, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple. I think you kind of go in waves, you know, like there's ones that you get really into. My wife and I just got back from a road trip. We drove down to Columbus from Toronto, and we listened to this podcast will kill you. Yeah. Which is I don't know if you've heard of that one. That one was that's interesting. Mark Bell Power Project is something that I like to listen to. Yeah, those are the ones that come to mind right now. Those
the reason I bring it up, mine's kind of the one I kind of stumbled on, Sean Ryan's show, and he's interviewing a priest that does exorcisms, and so it's just kind of weird what's out there in the podcasting world. This is a little
Sounds crazy.
Do you read books? Are you reading at all?
Sure.
So what's the last book you read, Nathan?
Well, the book I'm reading right now, I read a lot of theology, and so I'm reading a book right now by N.T. Wright. It talks about the reason for the crucifixion. So that one's a good one. I recently read It's a Gottman book. It's Dr. John Gottman marriage book. It's 7 best ways for a successful marriage, something like that. Yeah. That was probably the last book I've read, but I'm reading a book on theology right now. You know,
speaking of that, back to this exorcism podcast. It's funny how in Catholicism, in my religion, it's like Adam and Eve. Things started to go downhill with the tree, the fruits from a tree, and then Jesus redeems us on a tree with the crucifixion. So it's kind of funny how it goes full circle. Now, as we talk, the report is that Buck Pierce will be the head coach of your football team. I don't know that for sure, but as we talk, that is the report. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, you timed us getting together and talking unbelievable. I don't know if you knew something that we all didn't or whatnot, but we're excited. I mean, obviously, this is a big move for the team, and some moves made this offseason that we're excited about, that we're looking forward to next year with a lot of excitement as a football team, and we're excited that now we have a leader. And we have someone to take us there, and we're excited about what Buck can bring. I mean, obviously the track record in the last 5 years speaks for itself. I think the West has been a really tough division to come out of and to win, and they've done it 5 times. And I think it's kind of cool that he was obviously played the position in this league and played for the BC Lions at one point, and obviously whenever you have someone who's played the position, I think that's great for someone to learn from, and I think he brings a lot of a great winning culture and a lot of great things that I'm looking forward to working with and developing and getting better as a quarterback, and hopefully winning some games as a football team.
How important is it for you to have a guy that's played the position for the team that you're playing for right now? Like he's been there. He won a Grey Cup in 2006 in a support role, and he's been around the league not only as a coach but as a player.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it does nothing but help. I think that more often than not, you want to be able to have someone that can relate to the feeling of being in the pocket and having to make throws when there's someone coming at you and taking hits and stuff like that. And I think he's shown his toughness and his on and off the field in both of his roles, player and as a coach. And I think that's really important in what our front office is looking for. And I will say this: I don't mean that to say that to slight Jordan Maximit, who hasn't been a player at this level. I think he did a phenomenal job of being really good at what he was good at, and recognizing his weaknesses, but then flourishing in his strengths. And so I think he's one of the exceptions to that kind of old adage about wanting to have a player who played, but obviously to have someone who understands the preparation and the physical side of things is nothing but a plus, and I think that's going to be good for the locker room as well.
So do you get a sense of how much an offense might be different under Buck Pierce? And if there's a guy that's used to looking at different offenses over the last 2 years, it's you, man.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when there's only so many teams in the league, you kind of get a sense of, what everyone else is doing, and you're watching film and you're trying to study the defense throughout the week, but then you also are seeing what teams are doing. I think one of the things that jumps out, besides the consistent production from Zach and the run game with those guys up front and Brady, and the way that they've been able to do things consistently this year, I think or year after year, I should say. And I think that you put that aside, I think that one of the things that stands out to me is the fact that they've had a lot of injuries, it seems like, at the receiver position, but they seem to always be able to generate explosive plays and be able to, have some big plays over the top. And I think they put their guys in good positions. I think those are all positive things. So.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, your friend and former teammate Vernon Adams Jr., what did you learn from him and how he handled your situation this year? Because you're a guy that likes to learn from every situation. So what did you learn from Vernon that you can take going forward?
Yeah, I think he was a great leader. I think he was just so in tune with everyone in the locker room. I think he was a very personable guy that got along with everybody. I definitely feel like he did a lot of things that you were able to watch him and see how he interacts and how does he build relationships and stuff like that with people. I think that there's certainly a lot that from, I think, on and off the field that I can learn from him. I think his leadership stands out, and I wish him nothing but the best. I'm sure he'll be going to do great in Calgary.
Yeah, no kidding. He'll be a rival for years to come. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. Look back at last year from when you joined the Lions. Just sum it up for me through your own eyes and through your own feelings of what happened there last year.
Yeah, I mean, not good enough. It wasn't good enough. We missed the mark. I think this league. I think there's. In pro football, you either you get it done or you don't, right? So, and when you don't, you just look to turn the page and move on, and even when you do, you're looking on ways to improve, right? So, I think that obviously we didn't get to where we wanted to as a football team. I didn't perform the way I wanted to personally, but we're working really hard to be able to get back to a place where we can play winning football. We can be playing games late into November, and that's what we're focused on, and we're excited about the next steps there.
I'm confident, and everybody around you that I've talked to confident that you will bounce back and be the Nathan Rourke we saw before you left for the NFL. But how much what was off about your game, in your opinion, this year? Because you just said it, you didn't play as well as you thought you would. Was it transitioning back to the Canadian game? Was it not maybe as, I don't want to say seamless, but as seamless as maybe you thought it would be?
Yeah, certainly had higher expectations. Definitely wanted to pick up right where we left off. I think that's unrealistic. I don't think that's given the guys and the teams in this league enough credit. The guys are, teams are good. The game evolves, and you have to find ways to get better. Reality is, it was a year and a half of me not playing and taking meaningful snaps, and I got to find a way to get better. And I have no doubt that will happen. So I'm not worried about that.
How tough was it, Nathan, to walk into that locker room as a guy that was much ballyhooed, and rightfully so, to come back mid-season to that locker room, which, let's be honest, they started with VA in training camp, and you know what it's like, and early on in the spring and all the way up to be with one guy at the start. How tough was it for you to come into that?
Yeah, I think there was. I think credit to the guys in the locker room. I think there was a lot of, they welcomed that, and I never felt, even when they made a change at quarterback, that there was any animosity towards me. I thought the guys, worked hard and, did what they could to support me in that coming back and making that transition, and obviously would have liked to for it to have worked out a little bit better. And I think it definitely presents itself some challenges. When Verdon's been the leader for the last year and a half, and he's had the off seasons and he's built those relationships. It is interesting, but to be a part of that decision, and certainly wouldn't wish that upon anybody to be in that.
Yeah, so Nathan, you're locked into this league. You got a new contract, and we know how much you loved this league before you left. We talked about it when you were down there trying to get into the NFL, but you're only human. Mm-hmm. That was your dream, okay? Mm-hmm. And I had my own dream. I'm just trying to time myself in this way. I had my own dream. I'm on to something else now, not by my own doing. You're back here. You had your dream. So you came to back to the BC Lions. It's not like you weren't happy to be there, but was there a bit of a, kind of a down mode? Like, I feel like a little bit when I watched you were, maybe I'm wrong, you're kind of playing in a bit of a fog. And I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm saying that to say, hey, you're a human. You had a dream. It didn't work out. Maybe there's some bitter feelings. Maybe there's some stuff. And we forget sometimes. You don't just throw on a number 12 BC Lions helmet and you're a robot. You're a human. So was there a little bit of that? Did you feel that a little bit maybe?
I think that I certainly feel like it was there was some disappointment for sure, but I tried not to bring that into the locker room with the Lions. They they were mid-season, they have their own issues, and you never want to bring your own burdens into that kind of stuff. So looking back at that, am I disappointed? Yeah, especially with that last stint with the Falcons. But I feel like at this point, I've tried to make every decision, tried to make a decision that was best for me at the time, and I think I've done that. And I think that when I go through that kind of thought process, I can't say that there's any regrets. So I'm excited where I am now. I think I've learned a lot in the last year and a half, 2 years, and I'm ready to put that behind me and get going. And I'm excited that there's an organization like the Lions that have put so much trust and belief in me, and I take extreme confidence in that, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
What's the number one thing you learned about yourself in the last year and a half?
Yeah, I think my process. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that I've learned to trust it and trust my preparation, trust my process, and obviously you refine it wherever you go. But I believe that I still believe that I want it more than anyone, and I'm willing to put the work in and the hours in, and it's just a matter of it coming all together on the field, and again looking forward to a chance to be able to do that again.
You referenced the big road trip to Columbus from Toronto with your lovely wife. So that was obviously nice. It's nice to hit the open road and just kind of breathe a little bit. And then you mentioned the marriage book. How much has your wife helped you out? We talked a little bit about that when you kind of bounced from team to team in the NFL. Sure. But just talk about that support system at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely huge. When you're bouncing around a bunch of different places, there's a lot of uncertainty. Not sure if you're going to be on the roster, you're going to be called up this week, and all that different stuff. So to have someone there who's there's some type of certainty in your life is extremely rewarding, and I'm just very very lucky, and to be able to kind of do this crazy life with someone that's been great and very supportive in that.
Obviously, you're close with your brother. Your thoughts on what he's been doing so far? Nice move to Indiana. Man, I can't listen. Awards and All-Stars, they're up for debate. Okay, I can't believe he wasn't the Big Ten first-team quarterback. That's a head-scratcher to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one, Michael. I could not believe it. I know that he led the conference in passing touchdowns, I believe, and so. And obviously, I think they were a surprise. No one had Indiana, the top of the conference, going in the preseason. probably everyone had Oregon. Everyone was talking about Oregon. So, but yeah, I'm just so proud of him. He's had an unbelievable year. Hats off to Kurt Signetti and the rest of the staff and for putting everybody together. And they're not done yet. So I'm excited to continue to watch their journey and hopefully a couple more games here.
What kind of advice have you given to your brother? You went through a process that he's about to go through, whether it be in Canada or the United States, as it's his draft year. Kind of advice, brotherly advice, have you given Curtis?
Yeah, I think the biggest one would just have to be to be yourself. I think that especially in the pros, I think guys can see through a false persona or facade, and I think that being genuine and being true to who you are, especially when it comes to leadership, is extremely important. And I think he's done a really good job doing that. You read the articles about how his teammates at Indiana talk about him. I think he's really stepped into a really great leadership role and just kind of been that calm, steady presence in the huddle. And that's everything that I think he's good at. And so hats off to him for that. And obviously a little bit ways to go and this season, but I think that we all know that he's got a chance to play on Sunday down south, so we're looking forward to that.
I saw something interesting in your regular season game here against the Riders at the end of the year before the playoffs. You were starting that game, but VA was on the sidelines, and he was pumping guys up, and you were kind of off to the side wearing your helmet. You were the starting quarterback for that game. I took that as a little bit of you just saying, hey, you recognized the situation, you recognized, hey, that's VA's role, and you just kind of stood back as the starting quarterback and kind of let him be the rah-rah guy on the sidelines. Did I read that right?
Yeah, I don't think that. I don't know what exactly what you're talking about, but when it comes to that kind of stuff, I certainly don't want to. Especially when he's been a leader, a captain the entire year, you definitely don't want to take that away from him. Yeah. You definitely want to do what's best for the team, and certainly he's doing his part in terms of being a leader despite what his role might be. And I just know that what's best for the team in that moment is me getting ready and mentally preparing myself. I'm not a super rah-rah guy when it comes to before the game. There's certainly mental headspace that I need to get into, and that's probably what you're referencing. So I have no problem with any of that stuff. Certainly feel like there's there's some room to grow and there's a hole to fill with VA's departure. So we'll be looking to step into that. But again, that's one of the things that VA did well. He was, regardless of his role, he was going to be the best teammate he could. And again, hats off to him, the way that he handled all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do, and hats off to you too. A couple more quick questions. We saw 4 fights in college football in the States with planting the flag. Do you think they should? Do you think they should outlaw that? It's not like you've conquered a country. I know it's kind of like I don't know. It's symbolic, I guess, but man, it just opens up a can of worms there.
Yeah, it seems very intentional to me. Yeah, I going back to I think it was Baker Mayfield back. I don't know if he was doing that in Texas or
I think
anything,
he was.
Ohio State maybe, any of those schools. But I definitely feel like you're doing it to try to rub it in their faces. I think when you win a game, I think that I've always come up from the perspective that I respect all, but I fear none, and I certainly respect players who you're competing with, you play hard, and then after the game you're able to say, hey, I respect your game, well done, what a play, and you're able to have a civil conversation. So if you're going out there and showboating and doing all that stuff, that certainly feels like overkill in my book, and I certainly wouldn't want to be a part of the team who does that kind of stuff.
I don't know how I feel, but you might have a more definitive opinion on this. Your old teammate Trevor Lawrence rolling out of the pocket got smoked by that Texans linebacker. That linebacker got suspended for 3 games. I know we want to protect quarterbacks because quarterbacks are like the main position. But I feel like sometimes the quarterback's running, it's really tough. It's open game. Now that may have been you may have put a little bit too much into that one, obviously. But how do you feel about that? Because when you're a runner, a guy can't suspend himself in midair when he's going to make a tackle. Now that might not be an exact an exact great example, because it seemed a little bit dirty, no doubt about it. But just your thoughts as a runner when you leave the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, first off, scary hit. Obviously hoping the best for Trevor and Marissa, and as they're dealing with that, and never like to see anyone hurt. And I do know I never played, the position, and so I don't know how hard it is. But from what I've heard, it is a lot easier said than done in terms of pulling up. When you see a guy out there, and especially it's a quarterback, you want to be able to. You want to be able to do your job and be able to rally to them and whatnot. So I definitely think it's easier said than done. I don't know if sometimes sliding is the best way of protecting yourself. Like sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. And so I think there is. I think there certainly is some gray area there that I'm not exactly sure what the answer is.
Yeah, Tom Brady said the same thing. He's like, I almost feel like both should get a penalty. Okay, lastly, we're coming up on Christmas. I won't talk to you before then. Off the top of your head, what's the best Christmas gift Nathan Rourke has ever received?
Man, definitely it'd have to be some kind of trip. I think I remember back in the day, I think my family, we all went to Disney World, I think, for a Christmas vacation. So I think that would probably have to be it. Something to do with the family.
Okay, yeah, it'd be the birth of my son, December 23rd, 2001.
Oh, there you go. You can't beat that.
Can't top that one. And lastly, my girlfriend's pretty picky with her clothing and her gifts, so she usually tells me what she wants, and then I buy it. Mm-hmm. So really, she knows what she's getting. Is your wife the same way, or does she like to be surprised?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think that it definitely helps a little bit when someone is direct and telling you exactly what they want, as long as they don't hold it against you for not being a surprise. I think that's nothing wrong with that. That was the way it was for us when I proposed. Emily had picked out the ring, so I that certainly took off the pressure from me. But then she liked it. We knew that she was going to wear it and all that kind of stuff. So. Mm-hmm. But I think she's a little bit of both. I think there's certainly some responsibility for me to pick things out. But if she really wants something, she'll let me know. So I think that's good.
So she picked out the ring, and I'm pretty sure mine will too eventually. But was the proposal a surprise at least?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good. And can you tell me how you did that?
Yeah, we were at Panorama Mountain. The other side of the mountains, and still in BC, but our family's got a place there. A really meaningful spot for her, and I was just with family, and we went for a little walk, and there was an outdoor gazebo that we had put lights up, and just proposed there, and so it was the location was meaningful, and we just kind of had some help from family to be able to get the timing right and all that stuff. So,
Awesome, man. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll let you go. She knew what she was getting for an engagement ring, and hopefully she'll be there to see you get your second most important ring, a Grey Cup ring this year.
There you go. There you go.
Thanks for your time, brother. Take care. Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.